Thank you. Everything's going perfectly so far. Welcome, everyone, to the February 2024 program of League of Women Voters Lunch and Learn. We're glad you can join us for today's program about voter registration and voting processes. We're delighted to hear from our local authority, Lincoln and Lancaster County's Election Commissioner, Todd Wiltgen. I'm Terry Hendrickson, chair of the Lunch and Learn program series. A reminder again, please mute your audio and turn off your video so we can focus on our speaker and the slides that'll be shared. We do use the chat function for posing questions and comments, so type your questions there. We'll be sure to work our way through, hopefully, each and every one of your questions today. I will be monitoring the chat and will relay the questions to our speaker when they're ready to take questions. There is an announcement in your chat function for League members and those who are interested in League's work. You'll see that announcement in the chat function. There's quite a bit of it there. We're having a meeting for our 24-year program this Saturday, February 3rd in the morning. We'll be at the former AAA building at 2900 O Street. Please look in the chat function for more details about that, and I'll hope to see many of you there. There is a notation for RSVP, and that's important. We just want to know how many people are coming. Now, I'll ask our speaker to be patient with me for a minute. I do have an announcement. Some of you may have already heard. Our League of Women Voters president for League of Women Voters US, Deborah Ann Turner, passed away on Sunday from complications from a pulmonary embolism. I want to tell you a little bit about her because she has Nebraska connections, and she was serving as president of League of Women Voters US. She was a fearless advocate for voting rights and women's rights. Dr. Deborah Turner devoted her life work to impacting meaningful changes in the lives of voters across the nation. She was the 20th president of our 103-year-old voting rights organization. Dr. Turner played a pivotal role in fighting for a more fair and representative union while uplifting racial equality in the League's mission work. She first joined the League in Des Moines in 2010 and served as president there until 2015. At the same time, she served on the Iowa board as state vice president, becoming co-president in 2015. So she had dual roles with the League. She did that again when she moved and worked in Nebraska. She was a fascinating person. I don't want to share the entirety of her obituary announcement, but she was both an attorney and a gynecological oncologist. I had the good fortune of working side by side with her in a previous work life that I had. We're committed to honoring her legacy, continuing to uphold our values to empower voters and build a stronger, more inclusive democracy. For those of you who are interested in learning more about her life, I'm sure you'll be able to reference more, but that's my announcement today, and thank you for letting me share it with you. So let me introduce today's topic and speaker, and he's right here with us today. You can see him. Give us a wave, Todd. Prior to his appointment, Commissioner Wiltgen's extensive public service included working for a state senator, a U.S. congressman, and a U.S. senator. He served one term on the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners from 2015 to 2019. Prior to his appointment, Commissioner Wiltgen was the public policy specialist for the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. Todd, thank you for being with us today. Let's get started on your program.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Terry, for the invitation to join you today. And I am sorry to hear about your friend and her passing. She will be missed. I think her legacy will live on with all those through the work of everyone that she's worked with in her life. So again, I'm sorry for your loss. As Terry indicated, I'm the Lancaster County Election Commissioner. I was appointed just over a year ago to my position. My predecessor, Dave Shively, whom I know most of you all work closely with, retired. And so I was very honored to be appointed to replace him. And I just continue to work closely with Dave. He still works with us here at the office. We have a contract with him. In addition to being a good personal friend, he is still involved, not as much as he was when he was the full-time commissioner, but he still continues to work with us. So we're grateful for that. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. I did prepare a presentation, and I'll make sure that this works. And there we go. So just a little bit about what I put together. In today's environment, everything we do is a public record. And so this will become a public record. I will be putting this presentation on our website for anyone who wants to access it. And that way they can refer back to this. But basically, this is why we're doing this. We believe it's really important for anyone helping to register voters to know the regulations and laws regarding voter registration. If there's any additional questions or clarification from this presentation, if we're not able to get to your questions, please reach out to our office. Call us at the 441-7311. Our office hours are usually 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. except for holidays. Just a little bit background on election commissioners in Nebraska. In counties having a population of over 100,000, the election commissioners are appointed by the governor, and they serve 4-year terms. Currently, that's 3 counties. That's Douglas, Lancaster, and Sarpy. In those counties with a population between 20,000 and 100,000, the county board of supervisors or commissioners may appoint a separate election commissioner. Currently, there's only 4 of those counties that do that: Hall, Buffalo, Platte, and Cass. Then the other 86 counties are your election commissioner is also the county clerk. All 93 counties, all election commissioners are subject to oversight by the Nebraska Secretary of State. Our responsibilities, but my responsibilities here at the office is to conduct elections for the federal, state, county, and local government. We ensure compliance with the state and federal election laws. We maintain the voter registration database for all voters in the county. We'll get into how we maintain that here shortly. But we also hold the elections. We recruit, train, and motivate over 1,100 election board workers. We locate polling locations for 198 precincts. We prepare the ballots and supplies for each precinct. We also provide early voting opportunities for individuals in the military and overseas voters. But we also verify petition signatures on local and statewide initiatives, referendums, constitutional amendments, and any city charter amendments that are collected through a petition drive. We also maintain the history of elections for the county. So voter registration is our primary purpose for today. So I'm going to spend a lot of time going over a lot of the detailed information about voter registration. And then time permitting at the end, we'll be able to hopefully get to any questions we have. So just a little background on our voter registration system and how we maintain it. In 2005, Nebraska centralized their state voter registration database. And this was required by the Helping America Vote Act. This was also helped financed by that as well. This was very instrumental because this allowed the database to connect all 93 counties. And it would allow for the efficient list maintenance provisions that were found in the National Voters Registration Act, as well as the Nebraska Election Act. This allows us to check the driver's license numbers and last four digits of Social Security numbers through the Nebraska Department of Motor Vehicles. It also allows us to do a weekly comparison with the Office of Vital Records for any death notices. We do a monthly check for the Nebraska's criminal justice system for felons. But this also allows for the elimination of duplicates and makes it possible for a voter's history to follow the voter with them as they move within Nebraska. It also allows for more transparency in voter registration. A lot of people don't understand, but Nebraska's voter files are public records. We maintain those, and they are available for public inspection. There is some information that's not made public, like your Social Security number or your driver's license number or your signature, but your voter history is a public record. We do maintain that. We do maintain a list of all registered voters, both active, inactive, as well as removed.
I must have been there longer than a couple hours.
This is something that
Rob, they like to visit.
is made possible through this centralized voter registration system. And so we do provide a copy of the voter list to every political party. It's available whenever they request it. But you can also, the public is also able to obtain a copy of this list. They can come into the office, fill out a form, and can obtain a list. And a lot of individuals do, especially if they're running for office. This is a really good tool that individuals, as well as groups who are interested in the political process can utilize. And again, this is made possible through that centralized database. Just a little basic information about who may register to vote. I think a lot of people have a general understanding, but there's some detail that I think people may not realize. The first one is, when can people register to vote? When they're 18 years of age or older on the general election day, which is the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. And this is for every year. This isn't just during an election year. This will be in 2025. Anybody that is turning 18 on or before that first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of that year can register to vote. And so you don't have to wait until your 18th birthday. As long as your 18th birthday falls on or before general election day, you can register to vote for an election that year. You must be a United States citizen. You must also be a resident of Nebraska, and in this case, Lancaster County. You cannot have been convicted of a felony. And if you were convicted, it must be at least 2 years since the completion of the sentence for the felony. And this includes any post-release supervision. But also individuals who have not been found non-compos mentis, anyone who has been, then that's through a court system. That's not, it is pretty complicated to get to that position, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. Who needs to re-register to vote? A lot of people don't realize who needs to re-register. Anyone who has changed addresses, anyone moving, anyone who has changed their name, anybody who wants to change their political party affiliation. Right now, we're getting a lot of people, obviously with the presidential primary election coming up, we have a lot of interest in our election coming up. So we do have a lot of people walking in and registering to vote to change their party affiliation. But also those individuals who have had their voting rights restored. It's not automatic. It is required that they come in and re-register to vote, or re-register in one of the ways that I'll go into here momentarily. I also want to make sure that people understand, in Nebraska, failure to vote in a previous election does not require re-registration. I know that sometimes people from other states, I'm not sure which ones do that, but not voting is not a reason to re-register to vote. But we'll get more into that as well here in a few minutes. So I'm going to go through the different ways in which people can register to vote. And there are several ways. First, probably the most common, or I should say the most, familiar way is you can register to vote by mail. We do have a vote by mail form that the public can obtain. They can fill it out and they can return it either by mail or in person. They can drop it off at the office or one of our drop boxes. This is not a form, however, that can be emailed or faxed. This form is a form that can only be used either by mail or by dropping off in person. And it is available online in most libraries, post offices, and other government offices. They can obviously come into the office and register to vote in person. Our office here at 601 North 46th Street, right across the street from the county treasurer's office. We have walk-in hours. Is usually we're open 8 to 4:30 p.m. every day except holidays. You can also register to vote when you're obtaining or renewing your Nebraska driver's license or a state identification card. This is something, again, going back to it's commonly referred to as motor voter, but this goes back to that the national, the NVRA and the federal laws that go along with that do allow for the registering while you're obtaining a driver's license or a state ID. Along with that, there's also the opportunity to register to vote when an individual is applying for government assistance. This is usually through the Health and Human Services or Department of Education. They'll make those forms available as well. We also, through the Nebraska Secretary of State's website, if you have a driver's license or a state ID, you can go online and actually update your voter registration. It's also important to note that even though these are electronically submitted, here at the office, they're still processed manually. A lot of people out there have a belief that somehow if people go online and register to vote or update their voter registration, that it's done electronically and that no one ever sees them. That's actually not accurate. We actually have a staff person here who will review every application for registering to vote, whether it be on paper or electronic. Her responsibility is to review every one of those and process them manually. It's not automatic. And so that way, even though it is done on a website, again, it is verified by one of my staff. And that's an important reminder. If you hear people talk about people going online and registering to vote, it's just important to know that it still has to be manually updated in our database. There's also the National Mail Voter Registration Form. This is available on the Election Assistance Commission website. This is a federal form that is can be used by voters in any jurisdiction throughout the country. The nice thing about this form is it is available in 21 languages. And we do regularly get these, but again, these have to be mailed or dropped off at the office. These are not forms that can be emailed or faxed. Another more common way of registering to vote is through our voter registration drives. These are when we have the registration drives at schools, libraries, or other public venues. Usually these are conducted by county employees or county election commission employees, but we also partner with the League of Women Voters. They have a contract to assist us in administering these registration drives. We wouldn't be able to do all the drives that we have scheduled without a partner like the League of Women Voters. Coming up here in March, we'll be hosting a couple dozen voter registration drives, both in high schools, at public libraries, at grocery stores, and others that we have yet to schedule. That wouldn't be possible without partners like the League of Women Voters. And so we're very much appreciative of that partnership. But we also do have a number of deputy registrars. A lot of these deputy registrars are high school students, college students, who help us when we need to host one of these registration drives. These drives are conducted in teams of at least 2 from differing political parties. It requires training, and then the forms must be returned to the Election Commission within 24 hours. Interested individuals and groups they have the opportunity to pass out voter registration applications. This process is not regulated, and the persons distributing the forms should not provide advice about completing the application. I would just caution people, and this is something that I've heard, is that people who do fill out a form from an interested individual or group, they should not leave the form with that individual or group. They really should take it with them and return it to the Election Commission. Leaving the form with the interested group or individual, then they run the risk of the form not being returned to the office in a timely manner. And we do have a few deadlines, and I'll get to those here in a few minutes. But I just caution people about leaving their applications with a person that is not either a deputy registrar in Election Commission staff or a League of Women Voter representative. Here are the voter registrations I mentioned, and we're coming up to a few of them, and I'll just go over them real quick. For the mail-in voter registrations, they must be mailed and postmarked on or before third Friday preceding an election. This year, that will be Friday, April 26th. The registrations that are completed at the Department of Motor Vehicles must be completed by the third Friday preceding an election. And then the voter registrations delivered by personal messenger or personal agent must arrive on or before the third Friday preceding election. Individuals may register in person at the Election Commission office prior to 6 p.m. on the second Friday preceding an election. And that will be Friday, May 3rd. Just a caution, the public, these deadlines are subject to change due to weekends and holidays. Always reach out to the election official calendar for any deadlines for a specific election cycle. Just going back to some of the statistics that we're able to track with that centralized database. Here's a chart that I referred to. This is a comparison in Lancaster County. It's the number of registered voters versus the population of Lancaster County. This is something that obviously always changes, but if you can see, the number of registered voters is right around 200,000 as of the first of the year. I don't have the estimated population for 24, but if you can see, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, they estimate that we have about 325,000 individuals living in Lancaster County. So you can see there's about 125,000 people who are not registered to vote. And I think I get asked a lot, who's not registered to vote? I mean, obviously, anyone that's not reached the age of 18 by the general election day, that's anywhere, it's usually between 80 and 85,000 individuals. Children, it definitely is the largest part of that non-registered voter population. But there's also other people, that if you're not a U.S. citizen, Lincoln has a large refugee community, as well as a lawful permanent residents. Those individuals are not registered to vote. They will not be able to register to vote until they become a naturalized citizen. Again, so that's a large part of our population. But we also have the individuals who are incarcerated at our state penitentiary and the diagnostic center. They are counted in the census, but they're not able to vote, so they're not registered. So that population isn't registered. But also, we have a lot of college students. We have really great higher learning institutions here in the county. A lot of those students choose not to register in Lancaster County. They remain registered back where they grew up. And that's the right. The law is very clear that it gives students the opportunity to make a decision where they would choose to register to vote. They can register at their permanent residence where they grew up, or they can register where they go to school. So again, that's up to them. That's the right. But also, I mean, obviously, there are people out there who choose not to register to vote for a number of reasons. A lot of people just choose not to vote. They don't have an interest in it. I hear a lot of people that come into the office that cancel their registrations voluntarily. They do so because they don't want to serve on a jury duty. I make a point to remind people that while your voter registration is one way that you can be selected for a jury, the state also collects potential jurors through the Department of Motor Vehicles. And so just because you're not registered to vote doesn't mean that you won't get called for jury duty. There is still a possibility. But there is that myth out there that if you don't register to vote, you won't be called to serve on a jury, which is, again, not true. Here's just going back to some of the statistics that we do keep here at the office. We do track the political party registration. We do that monthly. Here's a chart that kind of shows a breakdown of our various political parties. And you can see, obviously, the red line are Republicans, the blue line are Democrat, and then the black line. Those are your nonpartisan voters. Obviously, you can see this is not a unique trend. This is very common that you're seeing an uptick in the number of voters who are registering as nonpartisans. That's like I said, that's a trend that has continued and probably will continue into the foreseeable future. And then again, it's not unique to Nebraska. That is something that's happened in other parts of the country. This is a new feature. This is something that I added to our website just this month. This is a way that the public can actually look at a map of Lancaster County, look at our precincts, and actually see how the party is, how the registration is broken down by party. I think a lot of people, talk about, and that the visual, I think, kind of demonstrates the independent nature of our county. The precincts in red are those precincts that have a majority of voters registered Republican. The blue, there are a few blue precincts in there. Those are precincts that are predominant, that have a majority voter registration of Democrats. And then all the purple you see, those are the precincts that does not have a majority political party for that precinct. And this is something, if you go to our website, there is a a new link to this. You can actually go in by precinct and look at the breakdown of each precinct by political party, as well as their population for the 2020 census. I think this would be a good tool just to remind people of the nature of our voting population here in Lancaster County. And then here is also, this is something that we've always had on our website. This is just a breakdown of our political parties by precinct, and it's in a tabulated format. It's been on our website, and people can go in and they can look and see. And again, these are done monthly. Today's the first of the month. I just about an hour ago signed a certificate that updated the information for February. And so we will have that up on our website by the end of the day. But again, this is a good tool. This is, again, I think the reason we do this is important, going back to transparency, is there's a lot of misinformation out there that's presented about our voter registration system. Again, it's managed on a monthly basis, even a daily basis. And we do provide these reports. You can track where people are registering to vote, how they're registering to vote. And so again, it just is an opportunity to dispel some of the myths that are out there that our election system is not managed properly, which is completely false. On a monthly basis, this is a chart that I just put together. This is at the end of December of 2023. This is the way we track who's registering to vote when they re-register. Again, we had 115 Democratic voters who re-registered, and you can see what party they joined. Same thing for the nonpartisan voters and the Republican voters. So this is, I show this to show that, and it's been said that the voter registration is a living, breathing apparatus, because it is. It's always in fluctuation. Every day people from different parties are registering to vote, and they're re-registering. They're switching parties, and so this is just a snapshot. This is 1 month. It fluctuates. In some months, more Republicans re-register. It kind of varies. There's really not any one issue I can point to. I will say, though, that when we start going into an election season, sometimes primaries do influence this trend, depending on what candidates are running for office and who wants to vote for those candidates. The Democratic Party has an open ballot for their primary, for president, and for all their offices on the partisan ballot. The Republican Party does not have an open ballot. In order to vote in their presidential primary or any of their other partisan races, you have to be a registered Republican voter. So that does influence this quite a bit, especially leading up to a primary election. And here's just not to leave the libertarians or the legalized marijuana now voters out. Here's kind of when their voters are left in December, here's where they went and re-registered. Real quick, just to go over how people can have their names removed from the voter registration list. Obviously, if someone dies, we do monitor obituaries. We do also get that list from the Health and Human Services when we get a death certificate. And so we do remove those individuals. We also will remove individuals, voters, who request that their names be removed. Again, when people think that they can remove their name and not be called for a jury, that happens. A lot of times when people move out of state too, they also will contact us and notify us that they're leaving and they want their registration canceled. But again, going back to that, that centralized voter registration system, we are able to receive notifications from other jurisdictions when a voter moves out of the state and registers to vote in another jurisdiction. Not all jurisdictions communicate with us, but a lot of them do. And when they notify us that somebody that used to live here and registered to vote here has re-registered, the law does allow us to remove them. Also, if an individual surrenders their operating license or their state ID in another state, we are able to, and we receive that on a monthly basis through the Department of Motor Vehicles. We do get information from the courts if an individual's been adjudicated as non-compos mentis, but we also get a list of individuals who have been convicted of a felony, so that those individuals are removed. But there's also it's a complicated process, and I'll get into it here. It's the National Change of Address Program, and I'll quickly go into this. This is the NCOA data is authorized by that National Voter Registration Act. It's done twice annually in Nebraska. We just did it earlier this week. What happens is Nebraska submits our list of registered voters to a contracted vendor who then generates a list. They use the National Change of Address program through the U.S. Postal Service to identify voters for each county who has submitted a change of address. Then we will send a confirmation mailing. We will note that address, and we will send a mailing. We just mailed out 5,000 postcards yesterday to those new addresses, and indicating that we had received a notice that they had moved. And then what happens then is the mailing encourages those individuals to either reply to the mailing. They do have the opportunity to update their voting registration address. And that way it will take them out of the NVRA process. If they don't respond, then they'll be an NVRA. And then before they vote again, they will be given the opportunity to update their mailing address. They'll be able to vote provisionally if they've moved out of the precinct. But if they move within the precinct, they can just update their address and vote. The state does remove those NVRA registrants who were sent those confirmation notices if they were sent to an out-of-county address, or if they've not responded to the notice, they've not signed a petition, they haven't voted or updated their voter registration for the last 2 federal general elections. There's also those NVRA registrants within county who have an unconfirmed address cannot be removed through this process. And just real quick, here's a timetable. I know it's kind of confusing, but this is a table that shows the mailing that we sent out yesterday. If you look, the January 2024 mailing, if they don't vote in the next 2 federal elections, then they will be removed by the state in January of 2027. And so that process is 36 months. And there are the future, we'll do one this summer, and then we'll do one again next January. And just real quick, I know we're getting kind of to the end of our time. I just wanted to make reference to the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act. It's called UACAVA. This is for the military, but also U.S. citizens that are living overseas. And this provides the legal basis for the voting requirements. And there's a federal postcard application that these individuals can utilize. And I would just refer anyone that has questions about this to the website, the Federal Voting Assistance Program. That's the www.fvap.gov. And with that, I know we kind of wrapped up quickly. I just wanted to make sure we had enough time for any questions. And so, I don't know, Terry, if you want to.
I got some, I made just some more fudge. Don't forget it.
No.
Oh,
You can freeze it. Yep.
Okay.
I will
Hey,
stop
just a
the share.
reminder to those who are
Your
on
box
the
is
call
bigger than
today, make sure that
Oh.
your microphone is muted. We're getting a little bit of private conversation. Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Todd. That is a lot of detailed information. I'm learning a few things here myself. Just a reminder to those of you who are here, look for the chat function and type in your questions there. Before we get started there, I'd like to invite all of you to consider joining the Lincoln League. League of Women Voters was started 103 years ago, and the movement was for women voters, but League of Women Voters Lincoln-Lancaster has men as well as women who are part of our organization and our movement. Our robust voter registration program, we already know about. We're doing advocacy work. We do educational programs. Again, we're having a gathering this Saturday morning, February 3rd. Look at the top of the chat function to see that information. So if you're not already a member and you're interested, we invite you to go to our league website, which is www.lincolnleague.org. All right, let's get to some of the questions that have been shared here. If I go to the very top, look at all of you who are here today. All right, so here's a question about after 2 years, do felons have to re-register, or do they automatically retain their prior voter registration?
So the answer is it's not automatic. Neither federal law nor state law allows for that. They must re-register. I will say that if they do it in the state of Nebraska, again, thanks to the system we have, they won't be given a new voter registration. Their prior registration will just be activated. But no, they actually have to do the process. They have to go in because we have to verify. There's a felon table that we have to look at to verify that they've fulfilled their sentence as well as their post-release requirements.
All right, thank you. Next question, do we need to re-register this year due to the new voter registration laws?
No, there weren't any new voter registration laws that were enacted. Actually, I think they probably make reference to the voter ID law that was passed last year, which has nothing really to do with voter registration. That has to do with voting. And so no, there's no requirement. The only thing that will change, and I mean, again, this is about voter registration, but in voting, and we'll do more information about the voter ID law. If you are voting early, you will need to provide your driver's license number, state ID number, a copy of a valid form that's acceptable, or a reasonable impediment certificate when you request an early vote ballot. If you're going to vote in person, you'll have to do the same thing. You'll have to present an ID. If you don't have an ID, you can fill out a reasonable impediment certificate, and then cast a provisional ballot. If you have an ID and you left it at home, you'll have 7 days to come to the office and present that ID before that vote will be counted. But no, there is no requirement that anything has to be done as far as re-registering to vote this year.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Yep.
How is confirmation done that a person is a U.S. citizen?
Yeah, so that's done by the Secretary of State, kind of on the back end. I don't have access to that system. That is something that's done at the state level through the Secretary of State, Department of Motor Vehicles, and other federal immigration agencies. And so, but I will say this is something that I want to point to, and I'm going to really quick, in all the forms, the people that do file or register to vote, they do have to affirm that they're a US citizen. And so the penalties for falsifying that are, I think, a deterrent. If you provide false information, and I don't like getting, I don't want to sound like a law enforcement official, but falsifying information on a form when registering to vote can be, it's a felony. It's a class 4 felony. If you're convicted, you can spend up to 2 years in jail, as well as be fined $10,000. For those individuals, who are not a U.S. citizen and they purport to be a U.S. citizen, I know that there are provisions in the Immigration and Nationality Act that are really severe, and they are, I would say, a really significant deterrent for falsifying your status as a U.S. citizen.
Okay, here's another question. I think this is with reference to the data that you show on your website for
Yep.
precincts and districts. Are district populations available to be broken down by race?
They are not, because the registration forms, if you go back and look at them, they don't have anywhere where individuals can self-identify by race. There used to be information that was collected because it was collected by other states. So our system did have some information about voter registration by race, but it skewed. It was just a very, very small number. It was not accurate. And again, the only reason why we had that was because the person moved from a state that did collect that information. So we just don't collect it in Nebraska, and we don't provide that information anymore. We do provide a breakdown by age. That is something that we are able to provide. And when I say age, rough age, year of birth. That's one thing that's changed in voter registration. We do collect date of birth. We can't share that. We can only share the year of birth. So we can provide ranges.
You hold all kinds of good information in your head, Todd. Thank you. The slides have been super helpful, and it's also nice to be able to just ask some of these additional questions. Here's another one for you. Due to a medical condition, my handwriting and my signature has changed significantly. How do I address that for voting purposes, or do I need to address it?
Well, it depends on where or how you're voting. So if you're voting early, what we do is, we do part of that voting registration system. We do collect your signature. If you've registered to vote, if you signed a petition, if you requested a ballot, any of those documents, that we do capture your signature at the time of receiving that form. And so people have a number of signatures on file. So we will look back through the signatures, and we do see that they progress over time. I mean, over time, people's signatures changes. So, we do see a progression. We can look back at that progression. And if we have questions about the authenticity of a signature, we do reach out to the voters. If they vote early, we will reach out to them. And because again, there is a signature verification involved in that process. And it's done frequently. And so, but also if there's nothing to, if you have had an issue that has, your signature has changed, there's nothing wrong with registering to vote again, filling out a new form, using your new signature. And then that way we will capture that signature in our registration system. And then if you vote early in May or before that May election, we'll have a more current signature on file. But yeah, again, if we have questions, we will notify voters if we do have questions about those early vote signatures. If you're voting in person, that's, I think, one of the benefits of the voter ID. You do sign the book, but the poll books are not verified. We do capture those signatures, but there is no signature comparison, which is one of the reasons why I think the public voted for the voter ID. So.
All right. Thank you.
And
What are
then, really quick, Terry, I'm sorry. And if anybody has any
Okay.
questions like this, don't hesitate to reach out to the office. We have a staff here that will be more than happy to accommodate special situations prior to an election.
Okay. What are some of the main things about the voter ID law that you would like to share? This individual is especially wanting to know about voting by mail, as that's how many more people like to vote these days.
Yeah, I will, and it has been said, and it's been confirmed in Nebraska and in Lancaster County, 97% of the voters do have a driver's license or a state ID. But there are about 3% that don't. And that will be about 5,000 voters. But I guess the thing I would want to share with those people, and we'll start promoting this here in a few weeks, because if you are on our permanent absentee list, if you voted by mail in the past and you've gotten one of our postcards, we're going to mail those out beginning on Monday, February 12th. We're going to mail out 60,000 postcards. And so then on those applications, there will be the box where people can put in their number, but also their driver license number, as well as their state ID. And also they'll be able to, if they don't have one, they can, we have a number of valid IDs that they can use. They can use any ID that's been provided by the state of Nebraska, by a federal government agency, by a county, as well as a lot of individuals who are living in a group quarters. A lot of anyone with a student ID that's issued by a college or university, high school IDs provided by public high schools. If you're in a nursing home, a hospital, assisted living facility, or any congregate care facility that produce a record with a photo and a name, those will be accepted. And so, but I would just think that an important thing, again, going back to what I said earlier, is if anyone has an issue, don't wait until election day. Like I said, fortunately we have time. We have, I think, 103 days before the election. Don't wait till last minute. Reach out to us. We'll work with individuals. We'll help them. We have a staff member who has reached out, has a liaison at every congregate care facility, all the nursing homes, assisted living. So we're doing outreach to those facilities so that we have a lot of that information resolved before early voting starts.
Thank you for answering that one. I had a particular conundrum to pose to you as it related to an assisted living community, but you have subsequently answered it with this last question. We've got 5 more minutes. We do have more questions, but I'd like to let everybody know about what's coming up next for our March Lunch and Learn program. March will feature 2 volunteer leaders in Nebraska's League of Women Voters, Joanna Lindberg, who is the government chair, and Rachel Gibson, who is vice president of action for our state league. Their presentation coming up on the first Thursday of March will focus on bills before the government committee, and the new rules that are currently underway. They're going to talk about how we can get involved and why. Good stuff. All right. So let's get to another question here before we close out. And thank you all who are staying late. Thanks especially to Todd, who's answering the tough questions. This individual has joined late and says, so if you've already answered this, sorry, is there a connection between being registered to vote and being called for jury duty in Nebraska? Do you know if any other states use voter rolls only?
Yeah, I mean, there are some states that will only use voter rolls, the voter registration. In Nebraska, it's a combination of the voting registration database as well as the Department of Motor Vehicles. So I said it earlier, if you have a driver's license and you're not registered to vote, you could still be called for jury duty. So.
Okay. I think this question has just been answered. This individual was concerned about issues for people who are in nursing homes. I think sometimes the hang up that's been brought to my attention is involved with the Department of Motor Vehicles, whereas the first place to go for a voter ID, and if you don't have internet, you can't register for an online appointment, and if you show up at any other time, you're not allowed to go in because you must have an appointment. At any rate, I think this is one of these questions that the DMV is probably going to need to work on more, but you're probably aware of this.
Yeah, and I'll just say it's an issue Nebraska-wide. I will just say that this is more acute in rural areas where you go weeks without having a DMV opening at a physical office. And so it's something that we're working through. That's why being able to do it online is really something that's helpful. But doing it, like I said, early, I said, don't wait till last minute.
All right. Here's our last question, Todd. And thanks again.
Yeah.
Define naturalized citizens, please, and are they able to register to vote?
Yeah, now and I appreciate this question from a former neighbor of mine. Terry and I used to live by each other many years ago, so I appreciate I haven't seen her in a long time. So a naturalized citizen is somebody who obtains the U.S. citizenship through a process. You know, they've gone through, they've filed the necessary forms with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. They've gone through the process. They've taken the test. They've done the background checks. They've paid the fees. There's a time frame involved, and then they go and they are at a naturalization ceremony. They swear an oath to the U.S. government, and they are given a certificate. At that time, they're a U.S. citizen, and not before. There's confusion. I've been involved in government a long time. Lawful permanent residents, refugees, student visas, those are all, there's a lot of categories out there. H-1B, H-2, H-1A, H-2Bs. Those are not U.S. citizens. Those are considered either lawful permanent residents, but they're not U.S. citizens. They're not eligible to vote. So.
Very good. We've got it. Todd, again, thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
And I apologize.
Very much appreciate. Yes, go ahead.
No, and this is my fault. Sorry, I forgot to do this. I forgot to give my contact information. If anyone has any issues, don't hesitate to reach out.
Very good. Thank you. I'll get a screenshot of that. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. We will see you next first Thursday. That'll be March 7th. Thanks to all. Have a good day. We are adjourned.